The users are the ones that have to know how to do it, know how to use it, but they're also the ones that have to sign off on it and say, yeah, this is right. This is going to be able to help me do my job better, or it's going to help me replace this antiquated product we've been using for 20 years. So if you can do that really well, I think you can be successful.
This podcast is brought to you by Fast Slow Motion, a team of expert consultants that have helped thousands of growing businesses build scalable systems on the Salesforce and HubSpot platforms. To learn more, visit fastslowmotion.com. Welcome to the Fast Slow Motion podcast, where we teach you how to build a business you love while enjoying your life. I'm your host, Sam Donaghey, and joining me for today's conversation is FSM's Director of Growth, Michael Johnson. Michael, it's great to have you here today.
Always great to be here, Sam. Excited about today's podcast.
Same here. And, in today's episode, we're diving into one of the hottest topics in manufacturing, which is technology. So whether it's driving efficiency or unlocking innovation or adapting to the latest trends, technology has really become a cornerstone for staying competitive in the manufacturing industry. So our guest today is John Barnhart. Now, John is the Chief Information Officer at American Cast Iron Pipe Company, and he's got over 2 decades of experience at the company. John has spearheaded the adoption of cutting-edge technologies, helping American Cast Iron Pipe remain a leader in its field. So, John, we're absolutely thrilled to have you here today on the podcast.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Michael. Really look forward to the opportunity.
So, John, let's start with your journey. You've been at American Cast Iron Pipe Company for quite some time now. I think that's fair to say. So can you tell us a little bit about your career path and how you actually became CIO?
Sure, Sam. So I began my career here at American in 1996, entry-level programmer analyst, not too far removed from Auburn. And my expectation was that I would get a few years of experience and move on to bigger and better things. But I really found a lot of great opportunity here at American. We were going up against Y2K at the time, and I was afforded the opportunity to travel to subsidiary locations in Texas and Minnesota. I got to work on software implementations and migrations there. Got to meet a lot of great people, understand their processes. As we were wrapping that effort up in 1999, we announced the creation of a new division, American Spiral Pipe Company. And that first plant was being built in South Carolina. And I had the opportunity to be the business systems project lead and spent a year and a half installing our ERP system over in South Carolina. I came back to Birmingham. There had been some faces to change. Some retired, some new. They didn't know who I was, and I didn't know who they were, but went into a application development manager role. And in 2008, became manager of the department. And in 2012, I became director and have basically played that role since then. My responsibilities really haven't changed, but in 2021, my title did change to CIO. So it's been a good run so far.
Could you give us a brief overview of who is American Cast Iron Pipe Company? What do you guys do typically?
Absolutely. So we're a large industrial manufacturer. We were founded in 1905 by John Egan. And at the time, the idea of a cast iron pipe company was through an individual named Charlotte Blair. And as you can imagine, back then, females really didn't start large companies. So Charlotte got with Mr. Egan and several other investors and started American Cast Iron Pipe Company. And we produced and shipped our first pipe into Atlanta, Georgia in late 1905. And ever since then, we've been growing in the infrastructure industry. In the 60s, we bought our first valve and hydrant company, American Valve and Hydrant, based in Beaumont, Texas. We also acquired a company just south of Birmingham, Specification Rubber Products. They produce all of our rubber gaskets that we ship with our ductile iron pipe. And we further expanded, put our first steel pipe mill, which is for the oil and natural gas industries, in the 1960s, expanded to a second mill in the 1980s. In the late 80s, we bought a second valve and hydrant company called Waters Company up in South St. Paul, Minnesota. And as I mentioned earlier, in the late 90s, we created American Spiral Pipe Company that now has 3 plants. The initial plant in Columbia, South Carolina. We have one in Michigan, and we also have our latest and greatest plant in Paris, Texas. So we serve water, wastewater, oil, natural gas, firefighting, industries and been doing so for quite some time.
You've just talked about a tremendous amount of vertical integration, and then also a lot of variance in products as well. So there's a lot of different things being manufactured, and also the supply chain aspect. Could you talk a little bit about some of the unique challenges in a company that is that large, that is that vertically integrated, and that does have that wide of a breadth of product from a technology perspective? What are some of the considerations that you have, and some of the strategies that you've had to employ to make sure that you guys continue to be successful?
Yeah, so if you kind of look at our roadmap over the years, we've traditionally grown through acquisition, and our management team, their philosophy has been, we're going to identify companies that complement our products and make us more diverse. And in most cases, we are not the experts in those products for the companies that we procure, that we acquire. It has been our leadership team's philosophy and strategy to leave those companies kind of alone, let them do what they're good at. We decide from a corporate perspective how integrated we want to be with those companies. So with some of them, we're very, very integrated. So for example, the duct iron pipe product that we produce here in Birmingham and the valve and hydrants that we produce in Beaumont, Texas and South St. Paul, Minnesota, those both serve our waterworks customers. So there's a good reason to integrate those so we can share information, share product demand, what's coming down the pipeline from a Salesforce perspective. But on the flip side, a good example, American Castings, they're based in Pryor, Oklahoma. They produce commercial castings for the agriculture industry. So the John Deeres and the Caterpillars and the Cases of the world. And there's really not a whole lot of need to heavily integrate between corporate and American Castings. They kind of sit outside and do what they're good at. So we take, a very close look at, what the industries are that they serve, and can we benefit from any of that type of integration? If so, then we certainly address it and take it on. If not, we just leave them alone and let them continue to do what they do best.
John, you talked about there some interesting facts around integrating related businesses. If someone's listening to this and was maybe on the fence on whether they should bring data sets together or create visibility across maybe two platforms or pull things together, what are some of the considerations for return on investing that type in that type of effort that they should think about?
I think one of the first things you really need to think about is, depending on the size of the organization, and I'm thinking about some smaller acquisitions that we've had even recently, do you want to add that additional overhead to that company? I have tended to take a very conservative approach to that. Others, maybe not so much, but you really have to think about how many employees do they have? What are they doing on their shop floor? How many folks do they have in their office environments? Are they running their business well with the systems that they have in place today? Or do we need to inject some of the technology that we have into their business to maybe improve their efficiencies? I think that's one of the things that I really like to focus in on. I don't think it's just an arbitrary, yes, we just acquired somebody and we need to build them into our systems. So you need to be really, really careful about that from an employee perspective, employee morale perspective. And again, the overhead perspective is very, very important in my mind.
Is there one piece of tech that you think every company that you acquire should typically adopt? Is there one standout piece of tech, would you say?
Absolutely. Our security posture. Cybersecurity is, golly, it's just, these threat actors are 2 steps ahead of us almost all the time. Generally, we're acquiring some smaller companies, and they have not had quite the investment in security tools, whether it be software or hardware or third-party services. So that's one of the first things that I look at, and generally put in place very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Cybersecurity has been a big shift in the industry in the past couple of years. And, going back, I can think of some other ones that have happened with, e-commerce in early 2000s, or early 2010s, and talked about data security. But, John, you've been in your position for 28 years. You've seen a good bit. What are some of the major shifts in technology that you've seen during that time that have been milestones for you?
It's been a lot from a business perspective and from an IT perspective, and I'll probably stick on the IT side. We just talked about cybersecurity. I mean, that's obviously a significant change for all businesses over the last handful of years. we can talk about that all day, but we won't. But I've seen a significant amount of technology and robotics put on the shop floor. It has significantly helped maintain production consistencies while also reducing costs. And we have more goals in the future to continue to do that. You can imagine it's fairly challenging to acquire young, talented labor that want to work in frankly, a very, very harsh, laborious environment. So to try to complement that, we certainly want to incorporate some technology where we can. Another thing for me, we've been engaged in our sales and logistics teams for a number of years now to create systems that generate competitive advantage. And if you look back 20 plus years, that just didn't exist. And I think that's really a testament to not only our IT team, but also the business leaders over those groups that understand the value of IT and how it can contribute to the overall customer satisfaction, which at the end of the day, that's who we need to satisfy as our end customer. And if we're not doing that, then we need to reset.
That's fantastic, John. So you really just spoke about technology creating some return or really adding some value to the organization, both from a consistency and quality standpoint in automation and production, but also competitive advantage. Could you talk more about how technology can create some measurable returns within a manufacturing organization?
A lot has to do with efficiency improvements, and those can lead to significant cost reduction. So how we can take on higher demand for our products while not increasing headcount, which obviously increases costs. And our division leaders are hyper-focused on just that. And we partner with them to set expectations for our software and hardware and integration partners. So we were on a call just in the last 10 days or so with a group that we're working with to roll out a new CPQ system, ductile iron pipe product line. And our director of sales and our director of project management for that group, they were laying out their expectations and everybody's on the same page. So when we get to a point to where we want to look at something that they delivered, they already know if it doesn't meet X, then we've got to go back to the drawing board. Automating repeatable, mundane processes also helps with these efficiency gains, while you can remove some human interventions and obviously the mistakes that go along with that. I would also say getting the right information to the right people is also very critical. And we have not mastered this yet by any stretch, but we have really, really intelligent users and leaders that know what they need. And we just have to work with them to determine the best mechanism to deliver that. So is that a dashboard perhaps delivered in Salesforce, or is it an automated email? So it pops up first thing in the morning when an executive comes into his office and his or her office and opens up email, or does it need to have some drill down capability? So someone's seeing a number and they say, hey, you know what? I need to dig into that a little bit more, having that drill down capability. We've had a data warehouse for many years, but one of our goals next year is to develop a long range plan for our data analytics journey and how best to accommodate all areas of the business.
You and I have talked about before, John, on when to look for a partner, when to seek a partner, and when not to, when to look at your own in-house expertise. What's the value that the right partner can bring to an implementation effort or an investment effort in technology within your organization?
So we obviously have been partners for a long time with Fast Slow Motion, and I'll just use that as an example. We don't have unlimited human capital or human resources. It has been my strategy to identify the right third-party partners or integrators to complement our team. And that's just what we did in 2017. We were evaluating a couple of new CRM packages. We had two, what I would just say, not complete failures, but they just didn't totally meet our end user sales expectations. And so in 2017, we said, you know what, we're going to look at Salesforce and we're going to look at Oracle CRM. We're an Oracle shop. So we looked at their CRM package, and as you know, Michael, Salesforce and Fast Slow Motion came out on top, and y'all been a very, very good business partner of ours for a long time. And when identifying a partner such as at Fast Slow Motion, we lean very, very heavily on our other business partners that have had experience in this area. So we reached out to a local business partner. We knew they were using Salesforce. We did not know they were partners with Fast Slow Motion. I went to visit them, heard the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's when I first heard about Fast Slow Motion. And so we've been engaged since then with your team. And we work on a lot of really, really good things. We don't have the expertise that Fast Slow Motion provides to us. So we lean very, very heavily to complement that human resource requirement. And we expect a very good partnership moving into the future.
Do you see any particular trends or innovations now or in the future that are making a big difference?
I do, Sam. Beyond robotics, I think, the latest buzzwords these days are AI and ML. So we started our AI machine learning journey actually this year. Starting to see some positive benefits from that. And we wanted to try to start kind of small and put have some projects that we could actually put our hands around. And knowing what we didn't know, we actually came up with some fairly complex projects. So we started a couple of those and we realized that they were probably a little bit more than we could bite off at the time. And so we put those on the sideline for a bit, had some other ideas and opportunities from some folks in the user community and delivered on those. And now we picked some of those other complex opportunities up. Again, identifying a partner, we've identified AWS, Amazon, as a really, really good partner for our AI ML journey. And they've been with us step by step. Our data scientist meets with them every week on the initiatives he's working on. And we just did a demo of an automation project for our valve and hydrant sales group about a week ago. And they're very, very encouraged. It's really an automation to evaluate what we have configured to put on order for a customer versus what they actually set via a PO. So it's reading through a PDF document that we generally receive in an email, which is the PO from the customer. We have an output of our configuration from our CPQ system for that product line. And the machine, the algorithm reviews and compares those and highlights areas that may be incorrect. And we've already identified one situation that could have prevented producing some product that we ultimately couldn't sell to a customer because it was configured incorrectly. So I see a lot of opportunity for AI for us and obviously for others moving into the future.
How do you typically help your team sort of adapt to those bigger shifts in the technology that you adopt?
That's a challenge, Sam. So we really try to focus on change management. And as you all know, change is hard. It's really, really hard. I mean, IT, we're change agents. We're the ones out there in these user departments talking to them about, hey, this is how technology can help you. Sometimes they have a division leader that says, you know what, we need something to help us do X. And so we create a team and we go out, identify a product. We say, okay, this is what we're going to implement. You bring that in, you create your team. And guess what? Even some of those team members that are in that division where that leader said, hey, we're going to make this change, they're not 100% on board with the change because it's hard. So I'm not saying we're experts at it, but change management is extremely important from a communication standpoint, ensuring that the end users understand what the expectation is, getting them involved early. And it seems to me like in the past, a lot of folks get caught up in design and development, and they don't leave enough time at the end of a project to do sufficient training and user acceptance testing. That's really what I'm talking about, is the training and user acceptance testing. The users are the ones that have to know how to do it, know how to use it, but they're also the ones that have to sign off on it and say, yeah, this is right. This is going to be able to help me do my job better, or it's going to help me replace this antiquated product we've been using for 20 years. So if you can do that really well, I think you can be successful.
John, do you find that I'm laughing because you're 100% right on the get focused on the design, and then it's always, oh, hey, we got to make sure we test and regression testing too. Do you find that involving the team in that process helps create buy-in and adoption?
I think it does for some. I mean, you have some users that just are stubborn and they say, hey, anything that you bring to me, it's not going to work. But then you you've got to find the ones that are good change agents that will support you. And those, they're there. I mean, they're folks that they see, hey, what I'm doing today just doesn't make sense. It made sense 10 years ago, but our business has changed. Our customer demand and requirements has changed. New technologies have come out. So, you got to find those individuals that will assist you and help you along the way. And to your point, you have to get them involved early. And we always try to figure out when is the right opportunity or time to train these folks on a new platform. From a Salesforce perspective, we went through several months of configuration for our different sales divisions to make the platform work for them the way they needed to serve their customer. I still think you need to train them fairly early, even on a base out of the box package, just so they can start to kind of see, okay, these are what the screens look like. These are the field names. This is what I have to get accustomed to and learn. And then they can help you start to build and configure what they need the system to do for them. And at the end of the day, I think you're going to have a much more successful rollout.
You mentioned AI earlier, and we talked a little bit about your current journey with AI and machine learning. Looking forward, just at a macro level, especially in manufacturing, where do you see it having the biggest impact? Where do you see those changes taking hold?
Right now, I see automating manual repeatable tasks or asking for internal information and AI returning results much more efficiently than a manual search. One of the applications we rolled out this year, it basically scans all of our historical customer dissatisfaction reports, what we call them CDRs.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't like to admit it, but sometimes we let a product out that shouldn't have been shipped. And so we get a call from a customer saying, hey, I've got a leak in a 24-inch fast tight joint. And so we bring that product back. We do our analysis on it, always take care of the customer and the need in the field. But we have all of this information that was previously stored just in SharePoint and some Word docs. They would use SharePoint. SharePoint has an okay search, but not the best. And so we fed all of those documents into Amazon, and it's basically a kind of a chat GPT like prompt. And anyone in the tech services group, they can look, okay, where have all my 24-inch fast tight leak issues been in the past, and what were the results of our analysis? And within seconds, they have links to all the individual documents. It'll give them, 3 or 4 or 5 sentences of the document, and they can dive into more detail. And just that saves an incredible amount of time, makes these folks much more efficient. So I definitely see that being a benefit, and that's taking place right now. I would say long term, this is selfish for me because this is what I want to see, but I'm very hopeful that AI can assist in very complex planning for the shop floor to meet customer demand and meet it on time. And this really is for our engineer to order products, managing multiple customer demands simultaneously, multiple jobs going through the shop floor at the same time, ensuring they meet the quality expectations and having those products ready to ship when the customer wants them. We have planning tools today, but I feel like they're kind of holding us back. We're not as efficient as we need to be and as we can be. So I fully expect some of these larger software companies to start incorporating AI into their planning tools, and I look forward to seeing that.
John, what would you say the biggest challenge is bringing AI into manufacturing?
Well, I think you certainly, and this is probably broader than manufacturing, but you certainly have to educate your users on what is AI, what is acceptable use, and what is not. So the first thing that we did, Sam, when ChatGPT, hit the streets, is we created an acceptable use policy around AI. And another piece of that is we identified some training via our learning management system that we have, and we required every employee, every user, to take that education. take that video course. So it basically told you what the difference is in private and public. And if you're using a public OpenAI ChatGPT or whatever tool you want to use, you got to be really, really careful about what you put in that prompt. I can see it would be very enticing to say, hey, I've got this trade show coming up next week and we've got this new joint coming out. I need to create a presentation and I'm out of time. So I'm going to feed OpenAI ChatGPT a lot of knowledge and IP on that joint to create a PowerPoint presentation. Well, that's very, very dangerous because now all that information is out in the wild. That's very important to understand what your risks are associated with AI. But also, I don't want to be a deterrent to using AI because it can be very, very incredibly powerful in reducing inefficiencies. So education, if you can create, your private, let's say a private chat GPT that's internal to your business, that's great. You can mine all your information, no matter what system it's in, and you can take extreme advantage of that.
If someone's just going down that journey of leveraging AI, what advice would you give them on just getting started?
Well, I kind of mentioned it just a few minutes ago, but I do think the most important thing is ensuring that your internal users understand the AI boundaries, what is acceptable and what's not. Once you go down that route, you still have to continue to educate your employees. We don't prevent anybody from going to, say, ChatGPT, but we also want to make sure that they understand, hey, you need to be very, very careful about how you use these tools, particularly with company information. That would probably be the first thing that I would suggest anybody do, is just be informative with your users. I mean, our acceptable use policy has a clause in it that if you don't follow it, it can result in termination. We haven't had to do that yet, and we don't intend to do it. But you just got to make sure users know, hey, this can be pretty dangerous. And secondly, I would say you have to keep security in the forefront. So anything that you start to look at automating via AI or ML, and you're going to deploy it in some form or fashion, you've got to make sure it's secure. So get your security team in place early and keep them engaged often, and I think you'll be okay.
John, we talked about security. We've talked about integrating related businesses. We talked about automating and production and getting data to the right people. If you had to sum up your technology strategy into 3 takeaways for other business leaders, what would that be?
Oh, gosh. Well, so our vision here at American within IT is to support and grow the business of American by providing quality information technology systems. And so there's several components of an overall strategy, but I would say probably the top 3, cloud first mentality. Our goal over time is to push as much technology as we can outside of our walls. And that could be either to a true cloud provider or a hosted environment. We do a lot of both. We've made a lot of great strides in that area over the last 10 to 15 years. And this really helps us to support our business alignment with particularly our sales divisions as they desire a single pane of glass to manage partnerships within customers. So an example of that, as you know, Michael, is we have Salesforce for all of our front end opportunities and contacts and high level quoting at this point. But we also pull a lot of our other business and ERP data back into Salesforce. So these folks in the field, when they get prepared to go talk to a customer, they're not just looking at future opportunities. They have an idea of what's going on with current orders. And if they have any outstanding dissatisfaction reports that they need to know about and be able to talk to. So that's a big one for us. Next, I'd say artificial intelligence and machine learning. Like I said earlier, we initiated that journey this year, and we're beginning to see some results of that. And I'm very, very excited about seeing what we can do in the future. And it will play a key role to further enhance our user experiences and minimize inefficient processes. And lastly, I'd probably say we've got to be scalable and flexible to meet changing business demands. We aren't there yet. I think our cloud first mentality can help us to get there, but we have several projects going on right now that will continue to get us to that point. So it's a long journey. We're not done yet. We probably never will be done, but I would say those are probably the top 3.
How do you ensure you've got really accurate and reliable data across a company this old?
Oh, Sam, that is a good question. And so we have we have some product drawings that probably date back to the 1960s, and they're in paper form. So if it's for a product that we no longer produce, not that big a deal. But some products that we produce, we've got to be able to support our customers and those needs in the field. So if a customer calls and says, "Hey, I've got a hydrant in the ground and it needs this part," and it was manufactured in 1972, well, we've got to understand, well, what is the bill structure for that hydrant that was built in 1972? Because the parts that we're making today for our new hydrants may not work, may not fit. So it's a massive challenge. You have, for that particular example, we have drawing systems. So now we're into 3D CAD.
Can you digitize those old drawings?
You can.
New systems?
You can. We can scan them in and turn them into a more upgraded format that can be maintained. So we do that. From a business systems perspective, project I talked about back in the late 90s, so we still use that legacy ERP system for a few of our divisions. So we have purge policies associated with that. We don't want to keep anything we don't have to have, but we still keep a fair amount of information. We're on a journey to move to JD Edwards from Oracle for ERP. We have 3 divisions on that now. We're working on optimizing one of those divisions that is on it because it's not as efficient as it should be. So hopefully we'll get some marked improvement in that in 2025, and then we'll start to look at some of the other divisions as well. So we've got some ERP business data in Oracle. We have some in a AS400 DB2 database. We have Salesforce information. We have all these other business systems that we use, and that's actually part of the data analytics effort that I mentioned earlier that will start next year. Is we have so much data in so many places. We do a fair job today, and we have the tools available to pull information from multiple sources and present it. But as far as trying to be as efficient as we can and to accommodate as many users as we can, we've got to get not only sales and manufacturing and finance involved. We need to get human resources involved. We've got to get technical services involved. We've got to get our operational excellence team involved because they all need access to that data. So that's going to be a fun project. It's not going to be easy, but I look forward to seeing the results of that one.
John, thank you so much for sharing your insights on technology, manufacturing, and what's ahead for the industry. Before we wrap up, we always like to ask our guests for a piece of advice or a quote that's inspired their journey. So do you have one that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Yes. And my girls know this one too. I'm a big fan of Tom Petty, and in one of his songs, Crawling Back to You, one of the lines is, "Most things I worry about never happen anyway."
That wraps up today's episode of the Fast Slow Motion podcast. A massive thank you to John Barnhart for sharing his wisdom and expertise. And if you'd like to learn more about American Cast Iron Pipe Company and the incredible work that they're doing, visit american-usa.com. And as always, thank you for listening to the Fast Slow Motion podcast. And remember to subscribe to your favorite platform and check out past episodes at fastslowmotion.com/podcast. And if you've got a topic or a question that you'd like us to cover, you can reach out at fastslowmotion.com/podcast feedback.